They swore the Alpha King ruined everything he dared to want. They swore his curse didn't just kill, it punished. Slowly, loudly, publicly. And when the storm cracked the mountains open above Obsidian Hold, Lyra Vale understood the cruelest truth of all. Fate didn't pick victims at random. It picked the desperate. Before we fall into this darkness, if you like stories with dangerous kings, impossible bargains, and love sharp enough to break a curse, hit subscribe right now. You'll want the next chapter waiting. The hearth in Lyra's cottage had been dead since midnight. No flame, no warmth, just a thin ribbon of smoke from old ash, and the wet breath of winter sneaking through the cracks like a thief. Lyra pressed a damp cloth to her mother's brow, trying to cool a fever that refused to loosen its grip. Her mother's skin burned like coal. Lyra's hands were numb like stone. In the corner, her little brother Taran curled beneath a blanket that was more holes than fabric. His knees hugged his chest. His stomach made a sound that didn't belong in a child. A growl, a plea. "Shh," Lyra whispered, smoothing sweaty hair from her mother's temple. "Just rest, please." Her mother's lashes fluttered. The woman's eyes were glassy, unfocused, as if the fever kept dragging her somewhere far away and cruel. "Don't," she rasped. "Don't do anything foolish, my sweet girl." Lyra swallowed the ache in her throat. Foolish, as if they still had the luxury of choices. 3 days ago the healer came, took one look at the trembling body on the pallet and shook her head like a judge. The herbs were rare, the medicine was expensive. The famine had stripped the village bare, fields dead, cattle gone, grain hoarded behind iron locks in homes that already had too much. They'd sold the last silver spoon. They'd burned the last chair for heat. They'd eaten the last crust of bread yesterday morning. Now there was only waiting to see which one of them would stop breathing first. Taran shifted and peered over his knees, eyes too large for his thin face. "Lyra," he whispered, "will we have bread tomorrow?" She forced her mouth into a smile that felt like it might split. "Yes," she lied gently. "Tomorrow." He nodded like he believed her because he needed to. Because children deserve to believe in tomorrows. The knock came like a hammer in a tomb. 3 heavy blows, not a neighbor, not the healer, not kindness, authority. The cottage door trembled under the impact, and Lyra felt her blood turn cold. Taran's head snapped up. Her mother's fingers tightened on Lyra's wrist with sudden strength, as if instinct recognized danger even through delirium. "Stay with Mama," Lyra told her brother, voice soft but sharp. "Don't move." The knock came again, harder, demanding. Lyra crossed the tiny room, every step loud in the silence. The latch felt too big for her shaking fingers. For one desperate heartbeat, she imagined pretending no one was home. But the guards outside would not leave. Power never left. Power only took. She opened the door, and winter rushed in, carrying something colder than snow. A man stood on the threshold, tall and brutal in black and silver armor. The royal crest gleamed at his throat like a promise of violence. His face was carved sharp, eyes flat as steel. Behind him waited 2 more guards, hands resting on sword hilts, their posture perfect and merciless. "Lyra Vale," the lead guard said, like he'd practiced her name until it lost its humanity. She tried to speak, her throat clenched shut. "By decree of His Majesty," he continued, voice empty, "Cael Dravont, Alpha King of Arden and Lord of the Northern Territories, you are summoned to Obsidian Hold, immediately." The title landed like a chain around her neck. Cael Dravont, the cursed king, the Stormwolf. The man whispered about like a prayer you didn't want answered. They said any woman he claimed died within 3 days, screaming, burning, unraveling from the inside. They said his bloodline had offended the Moon Mother herself, and the curse was her punishment. They said he'd stopped leaving his fortress because the world outside couldn't survive what lived inside him. Lyra's breath shook. There must be a mistake. I'm nobody." The guard didn't blink. "His Majesty does not explain his will to me, nor do I question it. But my mother, she's..." Lyra's voice cracked. "A carriage waits," he said, tone like a slammed door. "You have 1 moment to gather yourself." Behind her, her mother's weak voice rose, threaded with terror. "No, not my daughter, please." Lyra turned. Her mother was trying to sit up, trembling, eyes wide with a horror that cut through fever. Taran stood frozen beside the pallet, his small hands clenched into fists like he could fight an army. Lyra's heart broke in 2. This wasn't punishment. It was opportunity. A rotten, dangerous opportunity, but the only one that had ever knocked on their door. The king wanted something, and wanting meant leverage. Lyra knelt beside her mother and took her hand. "Listen," she whispered urgently. "Whatever this is, I'll handle it. I'll come back." Her mother's eyes shone with tears. "He's cursed. So are we," Lyra breathed, voice shaking with raw truth. "By hunger, by cold, by watching each other die slowly." She kissed her mother's burning forehead. "At least this way there's a chance." Her mother's lips trembled. "My brave girl." Lyra pulled Taran into her arms. He was too light, too thin. His bones pressed into her like an accusation. "Be strong," she whispered into his hair. "Watch, Mama. I'm coming back." He clung to her. "Promise?" Lyra closed her eyes. "I promise." She owned nothing worth packing, only a worn shawl patched twice and still not enough for northern cold. She wrapped it around her shoulders and turned back to the door. The guard's patience had gone sharp. Now, Lyra stepped outside. Snow bit her ankles immediately. The wind slapped her cheeks, and the carriage waiting in the road looked like a funeral dressed as luxury. Black lacquer, silver trim, massive horses with amber eyes that reflected the stormlight. She climbed inside. The door shut with a final heavy thud, and through the small window, she watched her cottage shrink into the white until it vanished entirely. The road north felt endless. Frozen ruts, black trees twisted like clawed hands, snow thick as ash. The farther they traveled, the more the world seemed to empty itself. Fewer houses, fewer lights, fewer signs of life, until even the sky felt tired. Then, through the swirling storm, Obsidian Hold rose out of the mountains like a wound that never healed. Jagged black stone, needle towers, no warmth, no welcome. Lightning split behind it, painting the fortress in a flash of stark terror. Thunder rolled like a warning drum. The gate opened like teeth. Inside the courtyard there was only silence. No bustling servants, no laughing guards, no firelight, just stone and shadow, and the sense that something old was awake and listening. Lyra's fingers were shaking so hard she could barely step down from the carriage. "Follow," the lead guard ordered. They led her through doors that groaned like they resented letting anyone in. The interior was worse. Corridors stretching forever, walls cold enough to steal breath, portraits of beautiful stern faces watching her like judges. The Dravon line, the cursed blood. At the end of a long hall stood towering black doors carved with wolves mid-howl, eyes inlaid with amber that seemed to glow in dim torchlight. The guards stopped. One pushed the doors open. "Enter," he said. "The king awaits." Lyra's legs wanted to fail. Her body wanted to run. But her mind saw Taran's hollow cheeks, saw her mother's fevered eyes. She stepped forward. The throne room swallowed her. It was vast, empty, and cold enough that her breath misted in front of her mouth. Pillars rose into darkness. The throne sat atop a dais of black stone that drank light instead of reflecting it, and on it, he waited. Kael Dravont was not the monster she expected. He was worse. Not because he was grotesque, but because he was beautiful, in a way that felt like danger. He was built like a weapon. Broad shoulders, powerful frame, stillness that promised violence if provoked. Black clothing blended into the shadows around him, making it hard to tell where the night ended and he began. His face was sharp, handsome like a blade, high cheekbones, strong jaw, mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to soften, but his eyes, amber gold, molten, empty in the way a storm is empty. They locked onto her and held her like a hook under the ribs. Lyra stopped at the base of the dais, pulse roaring in her ears. He didn't speak at first, he just watched, like a predator watching prey walk willingly into the den, like a man watching the last candle burn down. Finally, his voice cut through the silence, low, rough, controlled. "They tell me your family is starving." Not a question, a fact. Lyra forced herself to meet his gaze. "Yes, Your Majesty. Your mother burns with fever." Lyra's throat tightened. "How did he—" "Your brother," Kael continued, leaning forward slightly, "asked you this morning if there would be bread tomorrow." Ice flooded Lyra's veins. He'd been watching. How long had he been watching? "Yes," she whispered. Kael's hands tightened on the throne arms until stone creaked. A simple remedy would save them. Coin, healers, food. His gaze raked over her, not lustful, measuring, cataloging, weighing her worth like a blade's edge. "But you have nothing," he said softly, cruelly calm. "Nothing to offer." Lyra's palms bled from her nails digging in. "Then why am I here?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise that she dared ask, maybe even a sliver of respect. It vanished fast. "I have a proposition," he said. A bargain, Lyra corrected, voice shaking but steady. Kyle rose. The movement was quiet power, predatory grace. He descended the steps and stopped an arm's length from her, close enough that she smelled him, pine smoke and winter and something wild beneath it. Her own wolf, small, quiet, trembled and went still. I require an heir, Kyle said, each word clipped, like pain in disguise. The council demands it. The kingdom demands it. My bloodline must continue. His jaw tightened as if the words tasted like ash. And I have run out of time. Understanding hit Lyra like a fist of cold water. He wanted her body, her womb. A vessel to satisfy a crown that refused to care what it destroyed. One night, he said, voice lowering, you surrender willingly. If you conceive, your family wants for nothing. A house, land, coin enough for generations. Your mother will have the finest healers in the realm. Your brother will never know hunger again. Lyra's heartbeat slammed against her ribs. And if I don't, she managed. The bargain still stands, Kyle said, eyes burning with something bitter. They will be cared for. You have my word as king. He paused as if forcing something out of himself. And as the beast I am, Lyra's breath came fast, sharp. She should have hated him, should have spit in his face, should have run. But the image of her mother dying in that cold cottage and her brother shrinking into a shadow did something to her. It stripped the world down to one brutal truth. Love sometimes looks like sacrifice, and sacrifice sometimes looks like survival. What happens to me? She asked. Kale blinked, caught off guard by the question. You will be housed, protected. His voice hardened. If you bear my child, you will want for nothing. But I won't be queen. No, he said flatly. There will be no queen. The finality in his tone made her chest ache. This is not a bond, he added, voice tight. Not a marriage. This is survival. Survival. A pretty word for ruin. Lyra inhaled slowly, felt something inside her crack, some final piece of girlhood, some last shard of innocence. I accept, she said. Time paused. Kyle's face, stone a moment ago, fractured. Anguish flashed across him. Regret, something that looked like recognition of a sin he'd committed 100 times in his head before he ever spoke it aloud. His eyes flared wolf gold. You have no idea what I am, he murmured, voice rough as gravel. No idea what you've agreed to. Lyra's chin lifted. Then show me. The air between them snapped, electric and dangerous. Thunder rolled outside, closer now, angrier. Kale's jaw clenched. He turned away as if her gaze burned. Tomorrow night, he said, voice dark, when the moon rises. He motioned without looking at her. Until then, you will be shown to your chambers. You will be fed, clothed, prepared, like a sacrifice. Lyra followed the guards through cold corridors, heart pounding with dread, but her mind clinging to one thought like a lifeline. This is for them. This is for Mama and Taryn. Whatever happens. It has to be. Her room was enormous, bigger than her cottage, bigger than her entire life. A fire burned in the hearth, warmth she hadn't felt in weeks, and a bed draped in black velvet sat like a promise and a threat. Food arrived. Bread, meat, cheese, enough to make her stomach twist between hunger and nausea. She forced herself to eat anyway, because tomorrow she might not get another chance. Sleep came in broken pieces. She dreamed of golden eyes in darkness, hands hovering but never touching, a growl that sounded like prayer. When dawn came, Lyra woke expecting pain, expecting blood, expecting the curse to have taken its due. But she was alive, and the memory of last night was a blur of darkness and his voice, strained, raw, cutting through it like a blade. Get out. She'd fled, shaking, confused, untouched. Why summon her? Why dress her like ruin? Why bargain for a night he didn't take? Unless he couldn't. Lyra stood by the window, frost biting the edges of the glass, and felt the weight of obsidian hold around her. Silent, watching, waiting. Somewhere in this castle, the cursed king was awake, and the storm inside him had not finished speaking. Lyra found the library the way thirsty people find water, by instinct and desperation. Obsidian Hold was a maze of cold corridors and dead silence, but she kept walking until the air began to change. The stone here felt older, smoother. The torches burned steadier, and then she saw them. 2 towering doors carved with vines and open books, as if the castle itself once remembered gentleness. She pushed. The royal library stole her breath. It rose like a cathedral of knowledge, soaring ceiling lost in shadow. Shelves stacked floor to ceiling with leather spines stamped in gold. Thousands, tens of thousands. The air smelled of dust, parchment, and something almost sacred. For the first time since the guards dragged her from her cottage, Lyra felt wonder instead of fear. Her mother used to say books were doorways, worlds where girls like them could be powerful, worlds where monsters could become men and endings could be rewritten. Lyra traced her fingers along titles she couldn't pronounce and illustrations that made her heart ache. She found a section on old myths, pulled out a delicate scroll bound with faded ribbon, and carried it to a reading table near the high window, where pale light fell in soft, dusty beams. When she unrolled it, silver ink glimmered across the parchment, an image of the Moon Mother herself, towering and luminous, hands reaching toward a wolf howling beneath her. The text was ancient, but Lyra caught a few words: curse, blood, punishment, arrogance. Thunder muttered in the mountains. The keep shivered. Her hands jerked and the scroll slipped, rolling across the floor. "No!" Lyra lunged, catching it before it tore, gathering fragile parchment to her chest like she'd dropped a living thing. And then, a voice behind her, dark and low, slammed into the room. "Who allowed you in here?" Lyra froze. She didn't need to turn. Her skin already knew. Kael Dravon's presence filled the air like storm pressure, heavy enough to steal breath. Even without seeing him, she could feel the way the room tightened around him, like every shadow leaned toward his command. I'm sorry, Your Majesty," she managed, still kneeling. "I didn't mean to. I asked you a question." Each word was measured, controlled, dangerous. "Who allowed you here?" "No one," she whispered. "I shouldn't have come. I'll leave. Look at me." The command cracked like a whip. It wasn't just sound. It was power, alpha power, something that reached into the soft, hidden part of her and demanded obedience. Slowly, Lyra turned her face upward. Kael stood in the doorway like a storm-given shape. Black clothing, shirt unlaced at the throat as if he'd dressed in haste, dark hair loose, wild around his shoulders, and those eyes, brighter than before, almost glowing in the dim light, fixed on her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. His expression shifted when he saw her kneeling on the floor, scroll clutched to her chest. Shock, pain, hunger, all twisted together, and for a moment he looked like a man being haunted by his own want. "I said look at me," he repeated, voice rougher now. "Not at my feet, at me." Lyra forced herself to meet his gaze fully. The air between them snapped with tension. Kael crossed the room in 3 long strides. Lyra scrambled backward, but the table and shelf boxed her in. He loomed over her, scent wrapping around her, pine smoke and winter and wildness. His jaw was clenched so tight it looked painful. "What are you doing to me?" he demanded, voice almost a snarl. Lyra blinked, confused. I don't understand." Thunder cracked overhead. The window trembled. Kyle's hands fisted at his sides like he was fighting an invisible beast under his skin. His eyes flashed, the gold deepening, the human white disappearing. "Every time you're near me," he said, voice strained as if he had to drag each word out through his teeth. "My wolf, it—" He swallowed hard, as if swallowing fire. "It shouldn't quiet," he whispered. "It shouldn't stop." Lyra's heart hammered. "You're afraid." Kyle's lips curled bitterly. "Of myself?" "Yes." He moved suddenly, dropping into a crouch in front of her, close enough that Lyra could see faint scars along his jaw and exhaustion carved into his face like chisel marks. "Do you know why they call me cursed?" he asked. "They say everyone you touch dies within 3 days. Not everyone." His smile was sharp and empty. "Only those I mark, only those my wolf claims." He raised a hand slowly. Lyra's breath caught. His fingers hovered near her cheek, close enough that she felt warmth without contact. He hesitated, as if even the idea of touching her was an act of violence. "My wolf," Kyle said, voice low and broken, "is hungry, ancient. It devours what's pure. Then why choose me?" Lyra's voice cracked. "Why choose someone unimportant?" Kyle's eyes searched hers like he hated the answer. "Because the council demands an heir," he said. "Because I'm out of time." His throat worked. "And because, when I first caught your scent, my wolf went silent for the first time in years." Lyra stared at him, stunned. "Silent," he repeated, as if the word itself frightened him. "Still, like it recognized something." Kyle's hand drifted closer. Lyra didn't move. She didn't run. She didn't know why. His palm finally touched her cheek, Warmth spread through her skin. Lyra waited for pain, waited for burning, waited for death to grab her by the throat. Nothing happened, no agony, no curse, only his rough calloused palm, impossibly gentle, cupping her face like she was precious. Kyle went rigid, his breath hitched, his eyes widened with terror, real terror, because he'd expected her to die. How? He breathed. Then pain hit him. Not her, him. Kyle's face twisted, his shoulders seized. He sucked in a sharp breath like a man stabbed. His hand started to pull away, shaking. Without thinking, Lyra caught his wrist and held his hand to her cheek. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't let go." Kyle stared at her like she'd spoken a forbidden language. "It will kill you," he rasped. "Then let it," Lyra said, voice steady with a courage she didn't recognize. "You're in pain. I can feel it. And I'm not." His eyes flickered wildly between her face and his own trembling hand. Slowly, impossibly, the pain in his expression eased. His breathing steadied. The tension that always lived in his posture loosened, as if whatever beast was clawing the inside of him had been soothed. The curse went quiet. Kyle looked shaken to his core. "What are you?" he whispered. "What are you, girl?" Lyra couldn't answer. She was nobody, a starving Omega, a servant's daughter. And yet the cursed king's hand on her face didn't kill her. The moment shattered when Kyle yanked his hand away like he'd been burned. "Go," he ordered, voice raw. "Go now. Before I—" He didn't finish. Lyra scrambled up, scroll forgotten, and fled. But warmth lingered on her cheek, where death was supposed to live. Hours later, she wandered into the servant wing by accident, or by longing for something familiar. Narrow corridors, dim light, the sound of voices. She stopped in shadow, listening. "She survived his touch," an older woman whispered, voice tight. "I saw it. He cupped her face and she didn't scream. She didn't burn." "That's impossible," a younger voice breathed, frightened. "Not in 30 years, the older woman said grimly. "Not since the first queen," a third voice hissed, sharp. "Don't speak of her." Silence fell like a curtain. Then the younger voice, barely audible. "They say she died begging. 3 days, screaming the whole time." Lyra's blood iced over. "There were others," the older woman continued. "Noble daughters, Omegas, Betas, even Alphas, all dead within 72 hours. The curse doesn't discriminate. It devours." "So why this girl?" the young one asked. "Why her?" A pause. Then, "Either she's his salvation or the doom of us all." Lyra backed away, heart pounding. Salvation. Doom. She didn't want either. She just wanted her mother healed and her brother fed. But Obsidian Hold didn't care what she wanted. And neither did Kael Dravont. That night, as Lyra sat by her chamber fire trying not to think about golden eyes and trembling hands, the door opened without a knock. Kael stepped inside. No crown, no armor, just black clothes and exhaustion. His hair loose around his shoulders, his eyes finding hers instantly. Lyra stood. Instinct. "Your Majesty, don't," he said sharply. "Don't bow. Just don't." He moved to the window, putting distance between them like he feared proximity. For a long moment he stared out into the dark mountains. "Do you fear me?" he asked. "Yes," Lyra answered. Truth easy now, but not for what you are. Kyle's head turned slightly. "No, I fear what pain has made of you," Lyra said softly, "and what you're trying to become so you don't feel it." Silence. Kyle's hands flexed at his sides. "You know nothing of my pain." "I know you're alone," Lyra said. "I know this castle is a tomb you built around yourself, and I know you touched me expecting me to die." Kyle's shoulders went rigid. "And when I didn't," Lyra continued, voice trembling but steady, "you were more afraid than I was." Kyle moved like lightning. In one breath he was across the room, slamming his hands against the wall beside her head, caging her in. Heat radiated off him. His eyes blazed pure gold. "You think your kindness will save me," he growled. "You think you can heal a curse carved into my blood?" His wolf pressed under his skin, so present it felt like the air itself vibrated. "I am meant to destroy," Kyle said, voice layered with something feral. "I break what I touch." Then her scent hit him. Rain and moonlight, clean and quiet, and he froze. His chest rose in a ragged breath, his jaw unclenched. The beast hesitated. Lyra felt it, the shift. Kael's forehead dropped to the wall beside her head. Not threatening now, vulnerable. "Fractured. How do you do that?" he whispered, voice broken. Make it stop. Make the hunger stop. Make me feel human. Lyra's heart clenched painfully. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her hand toward his face. Kyle flinched, but didn't pull away. Her fingertips brushed his jaw. Warmth spread. Kyle's eyes closed like a man tasting water after years of thirst. Then his eyes snapped open, fear rushing back. He grabbed her wrist, not harsh, but desperate. In one fluid motion, he spun her and pressed her to the bookshelf near the window, body flushed to her back, breath hot at her ear. "Listen to me," he growled. "I ruin what I love." His hand threaded into her hair, tilting her head slightly. "And you," he whispered, voice shaking with need and terror, "make me want things I cannot have." His lips brushed the shell of her ear, barely a touch, more breath than contact, and the sound he made was half growl, half prayer. "So don't look at me like that," he rasped. "Don't soften, don't make me believe." Lyra turned her head just enough to see his face. Tears tracked down his cheeks, silent, silver in the moonlight. Kyle released her abruptly, stumbling back like he'd been burned by hope itself. "Stay away," he commanded, voice cracking. "For your own sake." Then he was gone, door slamming, leaving Lyra shaking against the bookshelf, palm pressed to her mouth to stop the sob she refused to give the castle. 3 days passed. Lyra kept to her chamber, reading whatever books servants left, watching storms roll through mountain skies. She avoided corridors, avoided the library, avoided everything that might lead her to him. But Obsidian Hold belonged to Kyle, and eventually he demanded her presence. A servant girl appeared at Lyra's door at dusk, eyes wide and nervous. "His Majesty requests you in the library. Immediately." Lyra's heart stuttered. In the library, Kyle stood by the tall windows, moonlight outlining his broad frame. He didn't turn when Lyra entered. "I'm told you like books," he said quietly. "Yes," Lyra answered. "My mother loved them." A pause. "She used to say stories were the only places monsters could become heroes," Kyle murmured, voice distant. Lyra waited, breath held. Kyle turned, expression flat. She was wrong. Monsters stay monsters, no matter what story they're in. He gestured toward a chair by the fireplace. "Sit." It wasn't a request. On the table beside the chair lay a worn collection of old folklore. Kyle's gaze remained fixed on her, burning and wary. "Read." Lyra's mouth went dry. "Any story?" "Anything without wolves," he said bitterly. "I've had enough of those." Lyra opened the book with trembling fingers and began to read, a tale about a girl born from starlight who refused to bow to fate. Her voice filled the vast library, and slowly, the air changed. Kyle's breathing deepened. The tension around him eased. When Lyra dared glance up, Kyle was watching her like her words were holding his broken pieces together. "Keep going," he murmured. So she did. It became a ritual. Every evening a servant would appear. Every evening Lyra would find Kyle in the library waiting in shadow. And every evening she would read until her throat grew rough and the candles burned low. He never came closer than 10 feet, never touched her again. He only listened, eyes closed sometimes, jaw unclenched, hands loose at his sides, as if her voice was the only thing tethering him to humanity. On the 5th night, during a pause, Kyle spoke. "Why do you do this?" Lyra lowered the book. "You commanded it." "I've commanded many things," Kyle said, gaze sharp. "Most are done with resentment." His eyes searched hers, confused. "But you, there's no hatred in you." Lyra swallowed. "Because I see what it costs you. The control, the isolation." She set the book down gently. "And because when you listen, you almost smile." Kyle's mouth twitched like it wanted to deny her. "I don't smile." "I know," Lyra said softly. "That's why it's noticeable when you almost do." Silence. Then Kyle's voice went flat like reciting law. "Hope is a liability." "And loneliness?" Lyra asked. "What is that?" Kyle stared into the fire as if it held answers he didn't deserve. "A fact of existence." Lyra's chest ached. On the 7th night, something shifted. Lyra read a story about the Moon Mother, how she once loved a mortal enough to give up divinity for one lifetime. When Lyra looked up, Kyle had moved closer. Not much, but enough that he now sat in the chair opposite hers, firelight catching the sharp planes of his face. "Do you believe that?" he asked quietly. "That love is worth sacrifice?" Lyra traced the page edge with her thumb. "I don't know. I've never been in love." Kyle's answer came too fast. "Too hard." "Good." He caught himself, jaw tightening. "Don't," he added, voice rough. It only ends in ruin. You speak like you know, Lyra said. Kyle laughed once, bitter. I speak from observation. Love makes people weak. It makes them believe in impossible things, like curses being broken. His gaze lifted to hers, heavy, like a girl with kind eyes changing anything at all. The fire cracked between them. Outside, thunder rumbled low, almost lazy. Lyra's heart raced. Do you ever dream of being free, my king? Kyle went still. Then so quietly she almost didn't hear it. Only when I'm with you. The words fell like stones into still water. Lyra's breath caught. Your Majesty, don't, Kyle said sharply, standing abruptly. He moved to the mantel, bracing his hands like he needed the stone to hold him up. Don't speak. I shouldn't have said it. Forget it. I can't, Lyra whispered. Kyle turned, eyes blazing with desperation. What do you want from me, Lyra? His voice shook. You want me to tell you you're different, that you're the only peace I've known in decades? Yes, she breathed. Yes, I want you to say it. Kale moved toward her, each step controlled and dangerous. So you can watch me destroy you like I've destroyed everything else. You haven't destroyed me, Lyra whispered. Yet, Kyle snapped, stopping inches away. His hand lifted, hovering near her cheek, trembling with restraint. The word is yet. Lyra's voice broke through her fear. What if there is no curse? Kyle's eyes flashed with pain. I felt it rise in my veins, ready to devour you in this room. Then his gaze softened, confused and aching. And then you touched me, and it went silent. His hand drifted closer, breath shallow. Maybe you're a miracle, he whispered. Maybe you're a test. Maybe the Moon Mother is cruel enough to send me hope wrapped in innocence, just to break me. Lyra's lips parted. Kyle, hearing his name from her mouth undid him. His eyes fluttered closed. His palm finally touched her face, gentle, reverent, like he was holding something holy and dangerous. Say it again, he breathed. Say my name again. Kale. He leaned in, forehead nearly touching hers. I want to kiss you, he confessed, voice torn open. I want to kiss you so badly it's killing me. Then do it, Lyra whispered. For one suspended heartbeat, the whole world held its breath. Kyle's thumb brushed her lower lip. His eyes darkened with want, and then he jerked back like he'd been burned by the idea. No, he whispered, anguished. I can't. He pressed his hands to his face, shoulders shaking. If I take you, he rasped. If I claim you, if I let myself have one moment of what I want, I'll damn you. Tears spilled between his fingers. The curse doesn't care about miracles, he said, voice breaking. It only cares about destroying what I love. He looked at her through his hands shattered. And if I love you, he didn't finish, he didn't need to. Leave, he whispered. Please, before I forget why I'm supposed to let you go. Lyra walked out on legs that felt like smoke. Neither of them slept. They came for her at dawn, not servants, guards, silver armor, cold faces, iron hands. Lyra barely sat up before they seized her arms. What? She gasped. What's happening? Summoned before the High Council, the lead guard said flatly. For crimes against the crown. Her blood turned to ice. Crimes I haven't... Move. They dragged her through corridors, and this time the castle felt like it was leaning in to watch her fall. Servants pressed into alcoves, eyes wide with pity or fear. The throne room doors stood open like a mouth. Inside, the High Council waited. 7 figures in silver and black robes arranged in a semicircle, ancient faces carved from judgment. And behind them, on the obsidian throne, sat Kale. He did not look at her. Lyra's heart cracked. The eldest counselor stepped forward. Lyra Vale, he announced, voice echoing. You stand accused of witchcraft, of using dark arts to bewitch our king and bend his will. Lyra blinked, stunned. No, I don't understand. I haven't. Silence, snapped the silver-haired counselor, a woman with eyes like ice. For weeks, His Majesty has summoned you nightly, alone, in private, against protocol and wisdom. She pointed at Lyra like she was filth. What spell have you cast? No spell, Lyra insisted, voice shaking. He asked me to read, that's all, I swear. The eldest sneered. The king has not sought company in decades, and yet you, a common Omega, claim it was mere reading? It was, Lyra pleaded, turning to the throne. Your Majesty, please, tell them. Kyle stared at the far wall like she wasn't there. Your Majesty, the eldest said, turning. Has this girl bewitched you? Silence stretched until it grew teeth. Then Kale's voice finally cut through, cold, empty, each word a blade. "She is nothing to me." Lyra's breath punched out of her lungs. "A diversion," Kale continued flatly. "Nothing more." Lyra understood the sacrifice in his cruelty. He was trying to protect her by making her worthless. But understanding didn't stop the pain, didn't stop tears from burning behind her eyes. The counselor woman asked sharply, "Did she attempt to seduce you?" Kyle didn't look at Lyra. She attempted many things. All of them tedious. Lyra flinched like she'd been struck. "Then you deny attachment?" the eldest pressed. "I deny everything," Kyle said. Finally. His eyes met Lyra's, and in them she saw it. Anguish, apology, the terrible cost of what he was doing. "She is less than nothing," Kale finished, voice cracking under the ice. "Remove her from my sight." "No!" Lyra lunged, but the guards yanked her back. "Take her to the cells," the eldest commanded. "Trial at sunrise." "I'm not a witch," Lyra cried, struggling. "I'm not—" A guard struck her across the face. Pain exploded. Copper filled her mouth. Warmth dripped from her split lip onto the marble floor. Kyle's name tore from her throat, raw. "Kale, please!" And something in the king snapped. Lyra saw it. Kale's spine went rigid. His eyes flashed from gold to a burning amber so bright it looked like fire. The torches flickered. The air dropped cold. "Stop!" The word came out barely human, more growl than speech. The guards froze. The council stiffened. "Your Majesty," the eldest began, voice wavering. "I said stop." The roar shook the stones. Lightning split the sky beyond the windows. Too bright, too close, as if the storm itself answered him. Kyle stood, and the room changed. He moved down the dais like death given purpose. His wolf pressed beneath his skin, barely contained, alive in every line of his body. "Release her," he ordered, voice layered with something ancient. "My king, the council has decreed," a guard began. Kale didn't let him finish. One moment the man held Lyra's arm. The next he was airborne, slammed into the far wall with a sickening crack. The second guard released Lyra immediately and stumbled back, hands raised. The council recoiled. Kyle turned slowly toward them, and what looked back was not entirely man anymore. "Touch her again," Kyle said, voice low and violent, "and I will tear this castle down stone by stone." Thunder rolled. Windows rattled. "Council be damned, kingdom be damned." His gaze was pure fire. "Touch her, and I'll show you what a true monster looks like." Then he turned to Lyra, and the beast gentled. Kale dropped to his knees beside her, hands hovering near her face, shaking, afraid to touch, afraid to hurt. "Forgive me," he breathed, voice breaking. "I tried to protect you." Lyra looked up at him through blood and tears. You called me nothing." Kyle's laugh came out bitter and wrecked. "So they'd stop looking. So they'd believe you weren't worth their fear." He swallowed hard. "But you are." His eyes searched hers like confession. "You mean everything," he whispered, "and that terrifies me more than the curse ever could." Lyra lifted her trembling hand and touched his cheek. Kyle sucked in a sharp breath but didn't pull away. "Then stop being afraid," Lyra whispered. Kyle's forehead dropped to hers, breath ragged. "I can't." "Why?" "Because if I lose you—" He didn't say it, but she heard it anyway. Kyle stood, pulling Lyra up gently and placing her behind him like a shield he'd kill for. "This girl is under my personal protection," he announced to the council, voice carrying with absolute authority. "Anyone who touches her answers to me." The eldest counselor's voice trembled. "The law—" "I am the law," Kyle snarled. Lightning flashed behind him, illuminating him in stark white. "And the law says she is mine, not possession." A vow, a claim that sounded like war. The council fled in minutes, robes billowing, fear driving them like wind. When the throne room was empty, Kyle turned back to Lyra, face shattered open. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I thought pushing you away would save you." Lyra cupped his face. "It didn't." Kyle's breath shook. "I know." Outside, the storm gathered again, heavier than before, and in the deep shadows of Obsidian Hold, something ancient began to stir, like the world itself was preparing to judge the king who dared to love. The storm arrived like a verdict. One moment Kale held Lyra in the ruined quiet of the throne room, forehead pressed to hers, breath ragged with apology and fear. The next, every window exploded inward. Glass and silver moonlight surged through the hall as if the night itself had claws. Wind screamed down the length of the chamber, snuffing torches in a single breath. Frost raced across the marble floor in spiraling patterns that looked like writing in a language older than kings. Kale jerked back hard, eyes going wide. Fear, pure, primal, split his face. "No," he breathed. "Not now. Not her." Moonlight gathered in the center of the room, thickening, brightening, shaping itself into something alive. And then she stepped out of it. The Moon Mother. She was beautiful and terrible in equal measure, tall as the vaulted ceiling, her body shifting between solid and ethereal. Her skin glowed like pearl under starlight. Hair flowed like liquid silver, cascading around her like a river. Her eyes were twin full moons, ancient, merciless, full of memory. Power rolled off her in waves that made the very stones groan. Kyle dropped to one knee instantly, pulling Lyra down with him. His grip on her hand tightened until it hurt. "My goddess," Kyle rasped. "Silence," the Moon Mother said. The word cracked like thunder inside bone. Kyle froze. Her moonlit gaze pinned him, and Lyra felt the weight of it in her ribs, in her lungs, in her heartbeat. It wasn't hatred, it wasn't kindness, it was law. "You were warned," the goddess said, voice echoing through every corner of the keep. "Child of the cursed line, you were told the price of arrogance." She lifted one luminous hand, and images formed in the air. Past kings, past lovers, screams without sound, bodies collapsing under invisible fire. The curse had a history, and it was written in loss. "The curse is simple," the Moon Mother continued. "You will destroy what you love most, always, forever, until your line learns what it means to be mortal." Kyle's jaw clenched. "I know," he whispered. "I've lived it. I stayed alone, I kept distance, And yet," the goddess interrupted, turning her gaze to Lyra, "she kneels here." Lyra's breath caught. The Moon Mother's eyes fell on her like winter falling on a field. "This fragile thing," the goddess murmured, "this innocent soul." Then she looked back at Kale. "Tell me, Kale Dravont, do you love her?" Kale's hand trembled in Lyra's. Silence stretched, taut as a drawn bow. "Answer me," the goddess commanded, and the walls shivered. "Do you love this girl?" Kyle's voice tore out like confession and wound. "Yes." The word was raw, unavoidable. "Yes," Kyle repeated, breaking. "I love her. I tried not to. I fought it. I pushed her away. But yes, I love her more than my own life." The Moon Mother's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, more like sorrow remembering itself. "Then you have sealed her fate," she said softly. Silver light gathered in her palm, bright and terrible. "The curse demands payment. You have loved, and so she must die." Kyle surged up, placing himself between Lyra and the goddess with the desperation of a man who would burn a world to save one soul. "No," he roared. "Take me instead. End my line. Kill me." "The curse does not work that way," the goddess said, almost pitying. "You know this." Her hand lifted. Kyle's shoulders shook. "Please." Lyra felt his terror like a living thing. And in that moment, she understood everything Kale had tried to do. Why he denied her before the council. Why he kept distance like it was discipline. Why he looked at love like it was poison. Because loving her was killing her. Lyra stood. Kyle spun toward her, eyes wild. "Lyra, don't..." She stepped around him. Kyle reached for her, but his hand stopped short, trembling, as if he feared touching her might trigger the curse right now, right here. Lyra walked toward the Moon Mother on shaking legs, heart hammering, but her mind strangely clear. "If the curse wants payment," Lyra said, voice steady, "then take me." Kyle's sound was pure agony. "No." The goddess paused, silver light flickering. "You would give yourself willingly," she said, studying Lyra, "for the beast who caged you." Lyra lifted her chin. "He never caged me." Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "He tried to protect me from himself," Lyra continued, voice stronger now. "He suffered alone so no one else would die. He's been punished for centuries for something he never chose." She turned slightly, seeing Kale on his knees now, hands pressed to his face, shoulders shaking. "I choose this," Lyra said, "of my own free will. If my life can end the curse, then let me be the price." The throne room fell silent, except for the wind humming through broken windows. The goddess moved closer, gaze searching Lyra, as if reading her soul line by line. "Do you know what you are, child?" she asked softly. Lyra blinked. "No. Your mother never told you," the goddess said, and something like recognition warmed her tone. She was of a hidden line. Lyra's breath hitched. "Omegas born with celestial blood," the Moon Mother continued. blessed long ago to balance the strength of kings. Lyra stared, stunned. Your innocence is not weakness, the goddess said. It is power. Then she looked back at Kyle, who was staring at them with eyes full of disbelief and desperate hope he hated himself for having. You are his cure, the goddess said simply. Kyle's voice cracked. What? When you touched her, the Moon Mother said. The curse went silent. Did you not wonder why? Did you not question how she lived when so many died? Kale looked like the floor might vanish beneath him. You are the balance his bloodline needed, the goddess told Lyra. Light to darkness, peace to fury. Your soul can withstand what would destroy others. Lyra's mind reeled. Then, she whispered, then he can claim me without killing me? The goddess smiled. This time, there was warmth in it. Yes, but her eyes sharpened. However, choice matters. The Moon Mother's voice filled the room like law carved into starlight. The curse was born from arrogance, from taking without permission, from domination without consent. It can only be broken by the opposite, by surrender, by equality, by love freely given. Her silver form began to fade, light thinning like mist. I leave you with moonlight, she said, voice growing distant, and a choice. Love each other or walk away. Her gaze fixed on Kyle one last time. If you take her, it must be as an equal. Not possession, not vessel, mate, queen, everything. The light flared. Then she was gone. The wind died. The frost melted. The storm vanished as if it had never existed. Only shattered glass remained on the marble floor, glittering like fallen stars. Kyle and Lyra stared at each other across the wreckage. Kyle stood slowly, as if his body didn't trust the world anymore. You were willing to die for me, he whispered, voice raw with wonder and grief. Lyra didn't hesitate. Yes, Kyle's eyes shone. Why? Lyra stepped forward carefully, glass crunching underfoot. Because you're worth saving. Kyle's hands rose, trembling, and framed her face like she was something sacred. Lyra, he breathed, voice breaking. The goddess said it must be your choice. It is, Lyra whispered. I'm choosing you, not because of the council, not because of an heir, not because I'm afraid. Her eyes locked on his. Because I want you. Kale's chest heaved like he'd been drowning for years, and someone finally offered air. I love you, he said, words rushing out like he'd been holding them back for lifetimes. I love you more than this kingdom, more than my crown, more than my own damned life. He pressed his forehead to hers. If you'll have me, broken as I am, then yes, I choose you. Today, tomorrow, forever. Lyra's breath shook, then kiss me. Kyle hesitated. One final, terrified heartbeat. Then he closed the distance. Their lips met, soft at first, like promise. And the world reacted, not metaphorically. The air snapped, light flared. The marble floor cracked in fine lightning lines. Kyle tore away with a strangled sound, body convulsing as if the curse had been waiting for this exact moment. No, he gasped. No. His eyes blazed pure gold. Bones shifted under skin, audible, brutal. Claws pushed from his fingertips. Power surged through the hall in waves that made Lyra's teeth ache. The curse wasn't breaking quietly. It was fighting to survive. Distant screams echoed through the keep, servants fleeing, guards shouting, terror rippling outward. Kyle staggered, panting, half man and half beast, fighting his own body. Stay back, he growled, voice layered now, human and wolf intertwined. I can't control. Another pulse of power exploded. The obsidian throne cracked straight down the center. Tapestries ignited in silver flame. The air glittered with wild magic. Lyra's heart hammered, but she didn't run. Kyle's eyes went wild, losing focus, as if the beast was climbing over the man to take the crown of his skull. Run, Kyle pleaded, voice breaking. Please, before I kill you. Everyone else was running. She heard it. Footsteps, cries, chaos. But Lyra stepped forward instead. The goddess said, I'm your cure, Lyra said, voice steady through fear. So let me cure you. Kale fell to his knees, shaking, claws digging into stone. It's too strong, he gasped. It wants blood. It wants destruction. And I'm right here, Lyra finished softly. Kyle's amber gaze snapped to hers, feral and terrified. I'm hungry, he whispered. So hungry. Lyra knelt before him. Glass cut her knees, but she didn't care. Then take what you need, she said, and her voice didn't shake. But do it with love, Kyle. Not with the curse. Kyle's breath stuttered. I don't know if I can. You don't have to control everything, Lyra whispered, cupping his face carefully, feeling heat and tremor under her palms. You just have to trust me. Kyle's claws, sharp, dangerous, lifted and held her hands against his chest like he was afraid she'd disappear. I'm terrified, he confessed, voice cracking, of hurting you, of losing you. I know, Lyra whispered. I'm terrified too. She leaned in and brushed her lips to his, gentle. But I'd rather face this with you than spend my life safe and alone. Her forehead pressed to his, and she breathed his name like an anchor. Kyle. The last thread of his control snapped. He kissed her like a man drowning, and Lyra felt it, the bond beginning, a thread of silver light connecting her heart to his, weaving through their souls. Power flooded through her veins, not dark, not violent, older, pure, as if her blood remembered what it was born to do. Silver light spilled from her skin. Kale jerked back, eyes wide. Lyra, I'm fine, she breathed. Don't stop. Kale kissed her again, deeper now, and Lyra felt his mark press against her soul, the thing that had killed so many. It tried to tear, to destroy, to claim by force. But her silver light held. It wrapped around Kyle's curse like moonlight around a blade and changed it, softened it, rewrote it. The mark that once destroyed became a bond, not possession, not punishment, choice. Two equals, choosing each other. Lyra gasped as the bond locked into place. Kyle roared, not in pain but in release. The curse broke. It exploded outward in a wave of pure light that shook the entire kingdom. Every window in Obsidian Hold burst. Every shadow fled. Every ounce of hunger and rage that had haunted Kale's bloodline for centuries burned away like mist under sunrise. Kale's claws retracted. His bones shifted back. The gold in his eyes softened to a warm, clear amber. He stared at his hands, trembling, human again. Then he looked at Lyra, still glowing faintly in his arms, eyes silver bright with tears. It's gone, he whispered. Lyra pressed her palm over his heart. Steady, strong, human. Together, she said. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in gold and pink, and something else shattered with it, Kyle's crown. The obsidian circlet, symbol of isolation and curse, cracked straight through. The pieces fell and shattered on the marble like a final ending. Kyle stared at it and laughed. A full, rich laugh Lyra had never heard from him before. He cupped her face, still astonished by joy. I'm free, he whispered. For the first time in my life, I'm free. Weeks later, Obsidian Hold learned to breathe again. Fires burned warm in corridors that once held only silence. Servants spoke without whispering. Flowers sat in vases where dust used to live. The castle didn't feel like a tomb anymore. Lyra stood in the rebuilt library, fingers trailing across spines saved from rubble. Sunlight poured through new windows, bright and honest. She wore crimson again. Not sacrifice crimson, not fear crimson. Choice crimson. Kyle found her there like he always did. No crown, no armor. Just him. White shirt open at the throat, dark hair loose, amber eyes clear and alive. I thought I'd find you here, he said softly. Lyra smiled. You always do. Kyle crossed the room and reached for her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm like it was a vow he planned to keep forever. The council met this morning, Lyra said, trying to sound serious. They're arguing about the southern border. Let them argue, Kyle murmured. I spent decades carrying everything alone. They can carry a dispute while He stopped, eyes softening with devotion. While I learn how to live. Lyra's chest warmed. Is that what you're doing now? Kyle nodded slowly, like the truth was still unbelievable. Yes. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, touch reverent. Because you walked into my darkness and refused to leave. Lyra's eyes stung. You tried to push me away. I did, Kyle admitted, voice quiet. Because I believed love only ended in blood and screaming. His forehead rested against hers. And then, you proved me wrong. Outside, distant thunder rumbled. Gentle now, not wrathful. Weather, not punishment. Kyle's mouth curved into a smile. Real this time. You know what I realized, he whispered. What? He looked at her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd never dared to say out loud. You were never mine to break, he murmured. You were mine to love. Lyra closed her eyes, breathing him in, and felt the bond hum. Silver and gold, steady and strong. The kingdom had called her the girl who tamed the beast. But the truth was simpler. She hadn't tamed him. She'd freed him. And in freeing him, she'd freed herself. If you want the next story, darker, sharper, even more dangerous, subscribe now, join the pack. Let the moon guide you back.